Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. And again, Yasher Koach to all the readers and to our Gabaim, especially Harold, who managed all the Sifrei Torah. And as Harold wrote in the chat, and other people have been talking about, this Parsha is reminiscent of, Mishpatim and Exodus as a whole is how we established a society. And the book itself is about how we leave Egypt, but it's also about how we house God's presence and how we communicate with God. So Shabbat Shkalim, the word Shkalim is shekels in the plural, and shekel is a coin, but it also comes from the Hebrew verb, lishkol, to weigh. Just like in Spanish, you have pesos. Peso is a type of weight. A shekel is a kind of weight. And that's how money was exchanged before we had paper money. Coins were assigned value based on their weight, and people would give money based on that weight. So I'd like to talk about how capitalism, or whatever nascent form of it we have in the Tanakh, in this Parsha, and religion and worship of God and houses of God interact. So this will not be a Torah discussion. I'll be moving us through different passages, but I will require 4 volunteer readers from the Google slideshow that I'm about to open. So if you could use the raise hand function, I'll be able to grab you from the participants column after the share. Thank you. I see 3 already. So just give me a minute to pull this up. Okay, so this says, can everyone see? It says, House of God, do's then and now. And this is sort of a beautiful melted silver, perhaps, tzedakah box. So our first passage is from Exodus 25. I see Sarah
Dave,
Hisham.
how about I be your TA so that you can focus on your slides and your teaching. I'm going to call on Stephanie Sigmund to read the Torah passage. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, I've got face in front of me. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I don't know how to get everybody out. Sorry. And God spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts for me from every person whose heart so moves them. And these are the gifts that you shall accept from them: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil and for the aromatic incense, lapis lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod, and for the breastpiece."
Thank you, Dr. Sigmund. So we have this passage in Exodus 25, which is the building of the Mishkan, which is a place for God's presence to dwell. And we have this command from God, Moses saying, tell all the Israelites, bring something for me. It can be money or, metal materials that can be turned into money, but also several other things like yarns and linens and animal products and wood and oil. This is like, bring whatever you got and we're going to use it to make this structure, not only make the structure, make it very beautiful and very intricate. So the line that I like to focus on, which Dr. Sigmund read, was Truma me'et kol ish asher yidbenu libo, which I put in the Hebrew below, which we see in the second line. It's, we're going to accept gifts from every person whose heart so moves them. So this is, there's a commandment from God, but the giving is only people who want to bring it. There's not a commandment that people have to bring a uniform gift. So people give according to what they have, and it's from the generosity of their hearts. So this is the first paradigm of giving that we have of 3. And I'll let Rabbi Rapport call on our next volunteer as we move into the second giving paradigm.
I'm asking Aria to read our next section. Aria, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. Exodus 30, 11 through 15. God spoke to Moses, saying, "When you take a census of the Israelite people according to their enrollment, each shall pay God a ransom for themselves on being enrolled, that no plague may come upon them through their being enrolled. This is what everyone who is entered in the records shall pay, a half shekel by the sanctuary weight, as an offering to God. Everyone who is entering the records from the age of 20 years up shall give the Holy One's offering. The rich shall not pay more, and the poor shall not pay less than half a shekel when giving the Holy One's offering as expiation. You shall take the expiation money from the Israelites and assign it to the servant. It shall serve the Israelites as a reminder before the Holy One as expiation for your persons. Thank you.
Thanks, Arya. So this is our second paradigm of giving. And as we can see, this isn't for building something necessarily. It's an expiation offering. It's sort of an offering based on fear so that we're warding off that nothing bad will happen. And all the adults who are in the Israelite census, age 20 and up, will give the same amount, which is a half shekel weight. So it says, the rich shall not pay more and the poor shall not pay less. So this is also what some might call a socialist or communist. Everyone is the same economically, regardless of people's sort of status in the community, regardless of how rich or poor they are. They're all required to pay in the same amount to the system. I don't know if we can necessarily project communism or socialism onto this thing, but the taxation that people are paying toward God is the same, people who are adults. And it's for the service of the tent of meeting. So this again is for a religious gathering place, a way that people are going to be communicating together as a community and with God. So this is our second paradigm. The first was we're giving to create a house for God, and people pay according to the generosity of their heart. This is the second paradigm, and we have everyone giving the same amount as an expiation offering. And we'll have two readers for this next passage, which comes from the Haftorah that Yael Bat Chava just read.
Okay, so we're seeing some excellent points in the chat about how this might be regressive taxation. A note that everybody is paying a half shekel no matter what. So Elizabeth Wilson pointed out perhaps socialism or communism would be more that each according to their ability. Yes. Lots of different interpretations we could bring to this. And I see 3 hands raised and only 1 more reading. So I see you, but I'm calling on Sarah.
We could split the next to 2 more readings.
Ooh, 2 more readings. Okay, so Sarah's going to read the first one. Sarah, are you able to unmute yourself? Yes.
Yes. Exodus, 2 Kings 12, 5-16. Jehoash said to the priests, all the money brought into the house of God as sacred donations, any money a person may bring, any money a person may pay as the money, the persons or other money that one may be minded to bring to the house of God, let the priests receive it, each from the benefactor. They in turn shall make repairs on the house wherever damage may be found. But in the 23rd year of King Jehoash, he found that the priests had not made the repairs on the house. He summoned the priests and said to them, why have you not kept the house in repair? Do not accept money from your benefactors anymore. Have it donated for the repair of the house. The priests agreed that they would neither accept money from the people nor make repairs on the house.
Thank you, Sarah. So before we jump into the next half of this, we have a system that's set up by Jehoash for the priests, but they abuse or just don't use this system, which leaves the house to fall into disrepair. The money that they're supposed to be using toward the repairs is not being used. So now we have to create a new paradigm, and we have our last reader.
It's going to be Sarah Hirschhorn.
Shabbat Shalom, can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
The priest, Yahada, took a chest and bored a hole in its lid. He placed it at the right side of the altar as one entered the house of the divine. The priestly guards of the threshold deposited there all the money that was brought into the house of God. They would deliver the money that was weighed out to the overseers of the work, who, in turn, paid the carpenters and the laborers who worked in the house of Hashem. They also paid for wood and for quarried stone with which to make the repairs, and for every other expenditure that had to be made in repairing the house. However, no silver bowls, no vessels of gold or silver were made from the money brought into the house of God. No check was kept on the overseers to whom the money was delivered to pay the workers, for they dealt honestly.
Thanks, Sarah. So we have here an evolution of the paradigm, which I think is kind of similar to what we do today. Whereas in our first reading in Exodus 25, where people are building the Mishkan, they're all donating their own gifts that are raw materials. But this time, there's literally a pushka, a tzedakah box, on the on the entrance of the house that people pay when they walk in. We don't have any commanded amount that people are paying, but we do see that this money in turn is then used to externalize the labor from this money that people are paying as sort of entrance fees to the house of God. That is then used to pay workers, to buy raw materials, to repair the house. But there's checks and balances on this thing. You can't just really use it to buy gold or make silver bowls as ornaments. And there's no, there's overseers, and there's sort of a system, which I cut out of the text, about how they count the money and put it in bags. But there's not necessarily there's overseers, but there's no checks on how they deal the money, because we assume that they deal honestly. And this, I think, is similar to how it is today. You know, we have, let's say CBST wants to build a building. I'm not saying, hey, Sarah Hershon, can you give us, 12 tons of steel? I'm asking for necessarily a donation that would then be used to hire workers and the raw materials for the building. So moving into CBST's donation scheme, or our method, I got info from our website, which has the Fair Share Dues Guide, which says to meet our annual 2.9 million budget, each of our 650 member households have to pay $4,400 per year. We know this is feasible for some, but not for others. And so our continuing membership program allows you to determine the amount of your donation. And on the website, we have recommendations based on sliding scale incomes, how much one might pay per month. And with this, I see this as a very progressive way for dues, rather than having sort of a flat fee and assuming that everyone comes in sort of a similar bracket of means to one another. We say, no, people have different income realities, and people can also give in different ways than money. People give with their time, people give to our chesed and social justice initiatives, people give with their presence, their Torah and Haftorah reading. There's so many ways to give to a religious community and give to a house of God that are not monetary. And this is the way that CBST organizes the dues. So we have, just reaching back, we have this first one, which is for the tabernacle, giving according to the generosity of our hearts. Then we have a commanded offering that everyone has to give the same amount, a half shekel. And then we have the third, where things aren't quite working out. And then we develop the system that people pay in, and that money is used to construct and repair the house of God within certain parameters. And then we have CBST's model, which I think is great in the scheme of synagogue membership dues. So I bring these three things because I think, we're not in a building right now. We're in this virtual space, and yet there's still upkeep required of these virtual walls, live streaming services, having tech behind the services, which we so appreciate and so need to make it look good and operate smoothly, takes upkeep, financial upkeep. And like I said at the beginning, the book of Exodus is not just about leaving Egypt and establishing a society. It's like, how do we house God and how do we communicate with God in a physical space? And now, since the temple was destroyed and we live in a rabbinic Jewish system, synagogues are our houses of God, and they take money to upkeep. And there's so many ways to do this, but I want to just uplift the ways that our Torah and CBST, perhaps inspired by our Torah, has these uniform and unified ways that we give in order to honor the relationship, a sacred relationship of houses of God, and that space that allow us to worship together and to create holiness together and to celebrate holiness together. So with that, I wish that our virtual houses of God and our physical house of God on 30th Street, may we return to it very soon, are upkept, and that we all feel proud of all the contributions that we give to our community. Shabbat Shalom.